The day my daughter sold my house, she gave me one day to leave, but she never knew what that house really was. I still remember the sound of the door closing behind her. Not slammed, just gently shut, like the conversation wasn't important enough to fight over. My daughter stood in the hallway with her phone in her hand, eyes fixed on the screen, and said the words that cracked my heart in two. "Mum, the house is sold. You have one day to pack." One day. I was 73 years old. That house wasn't just a place to live. It was my whole life. I didn't cry in front of her. Mothers learn early how to swallow pain. I just nodded as if she had asked me to move a chair, not erase my existence. She left soon after, heels clicking on the floor her father had polished with his own hands, and suddenly the house was quiet, too quiet, the kind of silence that screams. I walked into the living room and sat on the old sofa. The cushions were worn, but they remembered me. Everything in that house remembered me. My daughter never knew what that house really was. She only saw walls, land value, and profit. But I saw memories. I saw the kitchen where I burned my first dinner as a young bride, and your father laughed instead of getting angry. I saw the corner where we measured you every birthday, pencil marks still hiding behind the paint. I saw the bedroom where I held you the night you had a fever and whispered prayers until dawn. That house wasn't built with money alone. It was built with sacrifice. When your father and I bought it, we had almost nothing. He worked 2 jobs. I sewed clothes late into the night. Some evenings, we shared one plate of food and pretended we weren't hungry so you could eat more. Every brick carried a story. Every crack carried a tear. I went to the attic and opened an old wooden box. Inside were letters your father wrote when he was sick, before he passed. He told me, "As long as you have this house, you will never be homeless. It is my promise to you." I pressed those letters to my chest and finally allowed myself to cry. One day to leave. So I began packing not clothes first, but memories. Photographs. A chipped mug. A broken clock that never worked but your father refused to throw away. As night fell, I sat on the porch for the last time. The same porch where neighbors once gathered, where laughter echoed, where I waved goodbye every morning as my family left for work and school. I wondered where I would go, but what my daughter didn't know was that the house held more than memories. Years ago, after your father died, I made a decision. I rented out a small portion of land behind the house quietly. I saved every penny. I invested slowly, carefully, not for myself, but for you. I never told anyone. That house became the foundation of something bigger. By morning, the buyer arrived. A young man in a neat suit, smiling politely, papers in hand. He looked surprised when he saw me sitting calmly at the table. "You must be ready to leave," he said. I smiled gently. "Oh, I'm ready," I replied. "But before I go, may I tell you a story?" He hesitated, then nodded. I told him everything about the sacrifices, the promises, the land behind the house, and then I slid an envelope across the table. Inside were documents, proof. The sale had a condition, one my daughter never read carefully. The back land, the one that gave the property its high value, was never included, and neither was the small house built on it. The buyer's smile faded. "This changes everything," he whispered. Just then, my daughter arrived, furious, confused, demanding explanations. That was the first time she truly looked at me, not as a burden, not as an old woman in the way, but as someone she didn't fully know. The sale was cancelled. The house remained. But something else broke that day. My daughter's illusion that she understood my life. I didn't shout. I didn't accuse. I simply said, "This house raised you, and it protected me when no one else did." She cried harder than I did. Now, I live in the small house behind the big one, quiet, peaceful, by choice. The main house? I turned it into a shelter for women with nowhere to go, women who are told they have one day to leave, because no one should ever feel that kind of pain alone. My daughter visits sometimes. She listens now. She asks questions. And every time she leaves, she hugs me a little longer. That house was never just wood and walls. It was love. It was survival. It was a promise kept. And sometimes the strongest foundations are the ones no one sees until it's almost too late.